Thank you for tuning in today to For the Love of Freedom, where we peel back the curtain to meet the person and hear the stories behind their mission to bring freedom to the world. Joining me today is a true national treasure. Richard Viguerie is an absolute legend in the field of political direct marketing, a category that he created and has dominated for decades, and it changed the landscape of politics. Mr. Viguerie, I had heard about you for at least 20 years, dating back to my time in DC. I got to DC in 2002 and lived there till 2017. But I finally had the opportunity to meet you at a wedding this past weekend. My Uncle John was kind enough to make that introduction, and it was such an inspiring conversation filled with wisdom that I wanted to continue it here. And you were so gracious to accept my invitation. As we get started, the scripture that I wanted to set the scene for today's conversation is Proverbs 16, verse 26, and it says, "And the passion to see them fulfilled urges you onward." And when I read that, Mr. Viguerie, I thought of you because you're not only not retired, you seem to have no interest in retirement. You are a man in the arena, and the fire of passion for seeing America return to God, conservative principles, and the Constitution is as intense as it has ever been, I can imagine. Would you start out by telling our listeners a little bit about the work you do and how you got your start?
Uh, Great to be with you, Danielle, and great to spend some time with you at the wedding in Terrebonne Parish last Saturday. My mother and father, born and raised in South Louisiana, and the day they got married in 1929, August, they moved to Houston. So I was born in Houston some years later and grew up in Houston. But I try to get back to Louisiana and my roots and my family and my good Cajun food as often as possible. Uh, I'm 91 years old. I work literally 12, 13, sometimes 14 hours a day, 5.5 days a week. Love what I do. Been blessed with good health, and I just, hate to go to bed at night. Can't wait to get up in the morning. Charge hell every morning with a bucket of water. And when I'm growing up outside of Houston, Pasadena, Texas, playing cops and robbers with the kids in the neighborhood. I don't tell anybody. I'm not shooting robbers or I'm not shooting Indians. I'm shooting communists, commies. I came into this world knowing them as bad people. So in the mid, when I'm about 26 or 27, I get the chance to go to New York to run Young Americans for Freedom. It was a conservative youth organization that had just been founded a few months earlier on Bill Buckley's family estate in Sharon, Connecticut. And in those days, conservatives were like the tree that fell in the forest. We didn't have access to mainstream media, the NBC, ABC, CBS, New York Times, Time Magazine, etc. And so we just basically were voices in the wilderness. Running the organization, I did everything for about a year or so. And then I fell in love with direct mail because that's how the organization got its message out. That's how they raised their money, etc. And I made a deep study for the next 5, 6 years, studying marketing. And direct mail changed everything for American conservatives because we didn't have, as I said, access to America. People didn't know about our candidates. They didn't know about our causes. And direct mail, we went around that blockage, that microphone that was blocked to us, and went right into people's homes and told them about Barry Goldwater and Ronald Reagan and the need for this organization to get support, and this one needed money, etc. Changed everything. And to this day, 80-90% of all money for conservative candidates and organizations starts with postal direct mail. Now we have 4 major ways of communicating through the new and alternative media. First was direct mail, then we have the internet, cable television, and talk radio. And changed everything for conservatives. And without that, we would still be voice in the wilderness. So anyway, I said we've got 90 employees, and we're the largest direct marketing, concerted direct marketing company in the country, and we're growing. We're going to try to have 120, 130 employees by the end of this year.
Wow.
Uh, I, uh, I just enjoy what I do so much. I'm reminded regularly of Professor Harry Jaffa, who was a legend, uh, great professor from Claremont Institute. Probably as intellectually bright and smart as Bill Buckley, but he didn't have the publicity and didn't get the fame that Buckley did. But he was just brilliant. He said something about 15 years ago. It just it helps drive me. And he said that Western civilization survives because of America. And then he said America survives because of the conservative movement. And I've added to that, the conservative movement survives because of about 100 conservative leaders at the grassroots level. And that has changed everything in American politics, the rise of the conservative movement. And it's not only the leaders at the national level or the state level, but we need the leadership of people at the grassroots level. And everybody can do something to provide that leadership. And you know, don't wait for somebody to come knocking on your door to ask you to be a leader. Nobody knocked on Donald Trump's door to ask him to run for president. He chose himself. So your listeners, they can choose themselves to be effective. And we can all, with the internet now and listservs, we can all communicate as you're doing now. You're communicating with many thousands of people there and changing American politics where your voice is reaching. And all of our listeners, your listeners, can do the same.
Mr. Viguerie, when we were talking on Saturday, you talked about the fact that you connect with conservative leaders on a weekly basis through a phone call, and you find that 90% of conservative activists are low energy. Would you talk about that a little bit and what you think, what causes that lack of drive? I think in part it has to be a lack of purpose.
It's very discouraging to me. But I know most all national conservative leaders and a lot of state leaders. And in my opinion, I'll be with three or four hundred of them very soon here. And they're my friends. I love them. But they just 85, 90% low energy. Unlike the left, the liberals leaders, a dozen of them I can think of. John Podesta, Mark Elias, Eric Holder. It goes on and on. They have so much energy you cut with a knife, it seems like. But not so conservatives. My generation, I'm second generation conservative. First generation was Bill Buckley, Barry Goldwater, Russell Kirk, Frank Meyer, Brent Bozell Sr., giants out there. And they were mostly the intellectual part of the conservative movement. They laid the intellectual foundation for the movement. Then the activists came along. I'm second generation, as I said. Now most national conservative leaders are either third or fourth generation. But there was something about the second generation. Most conservative organizations out there right now were started by second generation conservatives. We were the entrepreneurs, the ones that came in and took the risk to build the conservative movement. And why is that the case that conservatives have low energy? For one thing, Danielle, this is a religion for the left. This is their religion,
Yeah.
controlling people's lives. Most conservatives just want to be left alone, and they don't want to. They've got their community, their family, their job, and they just want to kind of be left alone. They don't want to go out there and control other people's lives, unlike the liberals out there. So most conservatives just kind of rest and sit back and trust the Lord to take care of everything, but God helps those who help themselves, so to speak. And the encouraging thing, I think I mentioned this to you, is that I see most of our leaders these days that I interact with are under 40 years of age. And I'm very encouraged that the younger people coming along have much more energy than those in my generation or third generation conservatives. And so I'm very encouraged by the young conservatives. There's a lot of young conservatives in Washington and around the country that are making a difference. The Charlie Kirks of the world, for example. Uh, and so I'm just very, very encouraged.
The secret to losing weight 2 times faster has gone viral. See the transformations hundreds of thousands of people are experiencing around the world with the Slender Eyes drops. These homeopathic drops are proven to control appetite, support thyroid function, help balance the body's pH, improve energy, boost mood, and increase metabolic rate. I've heard firsthand testimonials from droppers in their 20s to droppers in their 80s who say that the Slender Eyes drops have completely revolutionized their lives. Try the drops today to see the results for yourself. To learn more about the Slender Eyes drops or other incredible natural wellness and lifestyle products, email me at info@freedomstate.us and put drops in the subject line, or visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. We also have links to those in the show notes. Thank you for supporting the state of freedom. You talked about the left having it be it is their religion, where their whole religion is to control us, and so much of the right is busy working, and it's taken a long time for people to wake up to the fact that we're working to fuel their religion to control control us. All of our taxes are going to their further control of us. As you think about people who look at you and say, this man has had purpose his whole life. I can't even begin to know what my purpose is. What kind of advice would you give people to find and run with their purpose?
Mickey, I want to make sure I mention one other thing here. Uh, Daniel, I at 91 years of age, I think the last 45 years or so, I think I have found my purpose of life, what God wants me to do. And I encourage young people all the time. I speak a lot to young people, and I encourage them to seek to know God's will for their life. And I thought the first 45 years of my life was to be in front of the cameras, running for office. And I ran for lieutenant governor of Virginia back in 1985. And my friend Roger Stone said that, and he tried to advise me, give me help and all that. And Roger, after the campaign was over, said Richard wanted to run for lieutenant governor in Virginia in the worst way, and he did. So, and I even ran for vice president in 1976 on the American Independent Party ticket. But after that experience, I began to realize God doesn't want me in front of the camera. I'm supposed to be in back of the camera, building cameras for people, building microphones. And that's what I do with my the 90 employees that we have there. We raise well over $100 million every year for conservative causes, and raise many, many billions of dollars for the conservative cause. And many conservative organizations out there, we started literally from zero donors and supporters. And I think I'm good at that. I enjoy it. I like it, and I'm getting better all the time. I still spend 2 to 3 hours, 6 days a week studying marketing. When we met, I gave you a marketing book there, and I'm like Johnny Appleseed going out there, and I try to encourage people to learn to be effective. It's one thing to know your beliefs, but it's something else to be able to be a St. Paul and effectively communicate that idea, that message out there. And so I encourage young people to really become effective. And you worked for at the Leadership Institute, and in Morton Blackwell, there's a new podcast. I want to divert people off from your podcast, but if they get a chance, Kevin Gentry has got a new podcast, came out yesterday, with Morton Blackwell. And Morton and I had lunch in 1972. He was a very young person working for a conservative think tank. I liked the lunch so much, I invited him to lunch a week later. And at the end of the lunch, he said, I spoke magic words to it. And the magic words were, Morton, I want you to come work with me and help me build the conservative movement. And at that point, he said he would have taken a pay cut. So he worked for me for 6, 7 years. And then he went into the White House, worked with Ronald Reagan there, and started the Leadership Institute. And he says it's important in this podcast that he just did with Kevin Gentry. Says once you've become really knowledgeable about your conservative belief, that you really understand who you are and why you believe what you do, then it's important to become effective in winning. So we want to win as well. And so he teaches people how to win, how to be effective, how to communicate. And so I encourage young people, if you want to be effective, you're unhappy about this, concerned about America, concerned about the country, learn to be effective in reaching out. And everybody can be a publisher today. You can write to every day, to once a week, to your children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, cousins, neighbors, people in your church, people in work. Now you can be Johnny Appleseed and spread the message out there. And in fact, I'd like to use the example, Paul Revere. Last Friday, Good Friday, was the 200 and I guess that was 10 days ago, 250th anniversary of Paul Revere's ride. And as he ran through the countryside that night, he didn't say the British are coming, because most everybody was British. It's like saying your neighbors are coming. What he said is the redcoats are coming. The regulars are coming. Everybody knew what a regular was and what a redcoat was. And then the next morning, we had the beginning of the American Revolution at Lexington and Concord. And at Lexington, the first battle in the morning, we don't know to this day who fired the first shot. It could have been the British, it could have been the Americans. But anyway, it was a shot heard around the world, changed everything. But it started with Paul Revere, and we can all be modern day Paul Reveres, talking to our family, our friends, our neighbors, etc. And we have that obligation to do that. We've been blessed with the information. We need to share it with others.
When we spoke on Saturday, you told me that there are four segments of this political sphere right now: Democrats, establishment Republicans, MAGA, and conservatives. Would you break that down for us?
Certainly. For many years, Danielle, I've been talking about the conservatives need to be a third force separate from the Republican Party. Democrat Party and all their allies, Planned Parenthood, the Sierra Club, all the green energy, all the environmental issues, they operate independent of the Democrat Party. These organizations, and there are over 20,000 of them, they have their own source of funds, their own membership, their own issues, and they don't take instructions from the Democrat Party. They give the Democrat Party instructions. Many years ago, Jesse Jackson, Al Gore, Dick Gephardt, former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Democrat, were pro-life. But Planned Parenthood said, no, you can't be pro-life and have a national career. So they all said, okay, I'll be pro-choice. In other words, they pressured the Democrats to move their way. And so I was saying for many years, we need to do the same with the Republican Party. We don't want to be an arm, an appendage of the Republican Party. We want to pull the Republican Party to be principled, limited government, constitutional conservatives, okay? And so now, though, recently, there's been another force in town, so we're now a fourth force, and the new force is MAGA. And our interests in overlaps 70, 75, maybe 80% of the time with MAGA, but not all the time. A lot of conservatives don't agree with the president on his tariffs, a few of his appointments, and so, the various issues that we are going to disagree with. And so we want to pressure not only MAGA, but Republican Party to move our way. Donald Trump at the National Convention of this year, 2020, put a plank in, a very weak, ineffective plank on pro-life in the Republican Party platform.
True.
The pro-life community grumbled and complained, but they didn't do anything about it, because Donald Trump knows they're a paper tiger, and we need to be more than a paper tiger. We need to be as effective for the Republican Party and MAGA as the Democrats are, as the liberal groups are for the Democrat Party. So
You're
we need
so
to be
right.
listening
And
to.
we have the moral high ground.
Absolutely. We're right on the issues. We are. We know we are. And we need to, it's not sufficient just to complain. And it's important to contribute, and a lot of the listeners do contribute. But in addition to that, we need to speak out. We need to, all of us have 15, 30, 40, 50 people who enjoy hearing from us. They get Christmas cards from us. So why don't, when we see a good video, why don't we send it to those 50 people? Why don't we send an email, a good article? Share that information with them and urge them also to be modern day Paul Revere's. It's good that you can be one, but you need to urge others to do that. And when we do that, the ripple effects will be massive. We'll be communicating with 100 million people out there. And it's important to do that because we don't have access to the microphones at NBC, CBS, New York Times, the Washington Post, etc. And so we can bypass that media. And if we're no new and alternative media, no direct mail, no internet, no talk radio, Donald Trump would not be president of the United States right now. Ronald Reagan wouldn't have been elected president if we didn't have the new
Yeah.
and alternative media. So use it. It's there for us.
And it's going to take some inconvenience. You think about the Democrats, you talk about their level of effectiveness, especially all those activist organizations, and they are in the trenches day in and day out. They are screaming, they are pressuring, they are picketing. Even when no one's looking, they're picketing something. And you and I both believe that we're in the political world. What we're seeing play out is evidence of a spiritual war that's going on. How do you characterize that war and our role in it? Because I think that ties into our willingness to be inconvenienced.
Well, one of the things that I talk about uh, regularly, and as you said at the beginning of the podcast, that I regularly communicate with conservative leaders. I send them like every 4 or 6 weeks a 20 to 20,000 conservative leaders in the country, what I call kind of marching orders. If you're doing A, B, and C, stop doing it. If you're not doing X, Y, and Z, start doing it. Tell them how to communicate with thousands of people or millions of people, etc. And then I do a weekly blog, Go Right, Go Big. And I wrote a book called Go Big. And so in all of these writings and when I'm on air, I'm talking about that it's important for conservatives to recognize we are in a spiritual civil war. It used to be in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, we had disagreements with Democrats. It was about the size of the agriculture department, or maybe we didn't want this new law or whatever. But those days are gone. We're now in a life and death battle for the survival of Western civilization, literally. So it's not only a civil war, but it's a spiritual civil war. We're dealing with people who, in my opinion, are mean, evil, and dangerous, and they hate America. They hate our Constitution. They want to restructure our country so that in the world, so that they're in charge and not the people. And so. Daniel, if many of your listeners now are going to be thinking how I can be effective. Maybe they want to do a podcast like you. Maybe they want to blog. Send something out on a regular basis to family, friends, neighbors, others. Okay. And when you want to be effective politically, maybe you want to start an organization. And we have many, many needs for new organizations at the local, state, and national level. We have about 1,500, the Democrats over 20,000. Maybe it deals with your schools. You're concerned about your public schools. Maybe you're concerned about law enforcement. Whatever you want to focus on. Think about we call it our company, Viguerie's Four Horsemen of Marketing. Okay, and these four horsemen are really important in life, even if you don't participate in politics. You're looking for a husband, a wife. You're looking for a raise, a job, a promotion. The four horsemen will help you achieve whatever you're looking for. Briefly, the four horsemen are position, differentiation, benefit, and brand. Position, let's think of Rupert Murdoch. So Rupert Murdoch, 35, 40 years ago, wanted to have a cable television. And so he looked at CBS, ABC, and he came up with the idea, and he identified a niche market. Half of the country 40 years ago didn't have a cable television or any kind of television they could go to and get the news and information they wanted. So that's a private decision. You privately decide what you want your podcast to be focused on, or your blog, or what you want to do in life, what type of a spouse you want. And then that's a private decision. Position. Then differentiation is what you do publicly to let everybody know about your hole in the marketplace. So Rupert Murdoch, he didn't go out there and say we're a conservative network. He hired Megyn Kelly, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, Brett Baer, etc., etc. And they did those things publicly. Third is benefit. And obviously you get news and information on Fox you don't get anywhere else. Lately there's competitors out there, Newsmax, etc. But for many, many years there was no competition. Fourth is the ball game. Brand. That's the brand. Brand is when you own a category. You do something no one else does. I have a brand. I was the first to ever do political direct mail. So I own a category. So when I'm dating my girlfriend 60 plus years ago, I didn't know it at the time, but I had serious competition. There was another fellow dating her too, and he ended up being chairman of a big oil company, national, and I had serious competition. When I asked her to marry me, honey, marry me, and life would be like this, and I made up a lot of stuff, but it worked. So I separated myself from competition. So when you have a blog, you have a podcast, you want to start a little organization to deal with the school issues or law enforcement, taxes, whatever it might be, what is it that you can do that's holding the marketplace? Nobody else is doing this to separate yourself. And by the way, there's a fifth element to this, which is called a tagline. Because if you're a candidate running for office, your name doesn't say if you're a conservative or a liberal or a libertarian or a communist. It doesn't. So you want to have a tagline. And I think everybody will agree, Republicans, Democrats, conservative, liberals, the best tagline of the last 40 years, Donald Trump, make America great again. And his last election in 2024, my national conservative friends know that I do marketing, of course, and they want me to come up with a tagline, a tune to whistle. Election 2022, there's supposed to be a red wave. There was no red wave. It developed. And one of the reasons were the voters went to the poll without understanding why it was important to vote Republicans. The Democrats gave the voters two tunes to whistle. One, democracy is on the ballot. January 6th, okay? And then the second one, a woman's right to choose, is on the ballot. Republicans, crickets, zero, nothing. But when Trump ran for president in 2024, it was make America great again. But we needed something more. That was 8, 9 years old. So all year long, I was trying to think, what's a tune to whistle for the voters when they go to polls? I couldn't come up with it. 10 days before the election, as usual, Donald Trump nailed it. I think I know something about marketing. I'm a rank amateur compared to him. He's a world-class marketer and communicator. But he nailed it in the last 10 days with an idea that really helped push him over the finish line, and that was, she broke it, I'll fix it. And he just kept saying that over and over. She broke it, I'll fix it. And his supporters could say, Kamala Harris broke it, Donald Trump will fix it there. And that's a tune the voters took to the polls, and it was very, very effective.
Do you have any advice on an exercise or a state of mind to get into to really be able to pull out one of those taglines? Because you can see the evidence of the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of a tagline. I listened to an interview you did with Kevin Gentry, and he talked about Jeb exclamation point not being much of a tagline at all, and no one obviously cared about Jeb Bush whatsoever with a tagline like that in 2020.
Yeah, uh, it's not easy. The first thing, if you're looking for a tune to whistle, study marketing. The book I gave you was by Al Reese and his daughter Laura Reese, but for 40 years, Al Reese and his business partner Jack Trout wrote probably 15 books, either separately or together. So I urge your listeners to read Al Reese and Jack Trout. And whatever they didn't write about marketing is probably not worth knowing. There's a man named Seth Godin who's writing today, and he's a brilliant marketer, and he's written 15 books himself, and he's got a blog. He publishes it 6-7 days a week, and it's free. Seth Godin, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people receive it, and it's brilliant. And of all the books he wrote, maybe the most effective was he wrote a book called The Purple Cow. I live out in the country, regularly pass fields of 40 brown cows here, 50 black and white ones on the other side of the road. You can't tell one from the other. But if one of those was a purple cow, so, I'm a purple cow in the conservative movement, in marketing, etc. So all of our goals, obviously Donald Trump is a purple cow. Going back to you to reference the 2016 election of Jeb Bush. So to this day right now, I challenge anybody to tell me what was the difference between Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, Bobby Jindal, and 10 others running for president. 17 people ran for president in 2016 on the Republican ticket. And they all look alike, But those that were a purple cow, Ted Cruz was a purple cow, Donald Trump was a purple cow, and that's why they were the two last standing out there, along with Kasich,
Yeah.
the former governor of Ohio. And so you want to try to separate yourself in some category. Brand is when you own a category. You're the first. You want to own a category. You can't own a category of, say, a beer, imported beer, lots of those. Can you be the first imported beer from Sweden, or from Denmark, or whatever it might be? And then once the biggest selling light beer today is from Mexico. They own a category, and so you want to own a category, and there is so many, and you diverge one category. Your brands are developed by diverging from an existing category. And there's such a need for communication out there. And that's how we win. We win by educating the American people. Our views and values are popular with the American people. Self-government, limited government, lower taxes. Secure borders, secure country, strong national defense. It goes on and on. Traditional moral values. No boys in girls' bathrooms or showers or sports. And American people share those views and values with. They don't understand what the Democrats believe because ABC, CBS, NBC is not telling them that. So there's an opportunity for all of your listeners to own a category out there in their community. Maybe nobody is talking about this in their community, and there's a great need for them to have a blog, have a podcast, have some opportunity that they do daily or regular emails, whatever it might be.
Do you have any either advice or criticism for effective communication of these issues? Because it has been difficult to galvanize people on the right for pro-Constitution issues, and I'm wondering what is it that it'll take for us to get those wheels turning at a higher velocity?
Uh, it's a great question. Let me just mention one of the things that I forgot to mention earlier is that the importance of mentors. I've been blessed with 4 mentors in my life, and 3 of them are dead. One of them, Dan Sullivan, the world's most famous and best business coach, Dan Sullivan, is just great. And I encourage people who are interested in being effective in being an entrepreneur. He's the world's best entrepreneur coach. But as a general rule, you don't seek out a mentor. Mentors will seek you out. But to answer your question, Danielle, for 10 years, back in the mid 70s through the mid 80s, we had a nice big home close to Washington, D.C. in McLean, Virginia. And I would have 2 or 3 or 4 sometimes meetings, 30 meetings on a weekly basis at my home. And one of them was every Wednesday morning for 10 years, the leaders of the conservative movement, 8, 10 of them, would gather at my home for 2 hours at 7:30 to 9:30, and we would plot and plan. And to the extent there could be anything that would be called the Hillary Clinton's vast right-wing conspiracy, that would have been it. Then there was a period of time when we'd reconvene in the Wednesday evening with the same people for breakfast, but this time we'd be joined by 6 or 7 young congressmen, Newt Gingrich and Vin Weber and Bob Walker, some of the young congressmen back in the early 80s. And the during the night when we're brainstorming and strategizing, we'd invariably come up with problems that we need to solve. And Newt Gingrich would always go to the blackboard. We didn't have whiteboards in those days, and write 5 words on there, 4 categories. He'd write on vision, goal, strategy, and then tactics/projects. And then 30 minutes later, we were trying to pass legislation or defeat legislation. We saw a clear path forward. And I just encourage, I do that once, 2, 3 times a week. I never go to an important meeting or have an important trip that I take or a phone call unless I write down what's my vision for this phone call, what's my goal, what's my strategy, what's my tactics/projects. And the most important thing about that Newt Gingrich 4-part plan is not working the plan. That's important, but that's secondary. The number one benefit is writing the plan. As you write the plan, it clarifies your thinking. You thought you wanted to go here. You say, no, I see I need to go here. More of this, less of that. And so I just encourage everybody, whatever you're doing in your career, your life, or whatever. I wish somebody had told me that when I was 20 years old. Have a plan for your life. And it's permissible to change. You can alter it. But start off. If you don't know where you're going, any train will get you there. Okay? Any road will get you there. But so start off with a plan. When Bill Clinton is 16 years old, he's telling people he's going to be president of the United States. At Yale Law School, his girlfriend, Hillary Rodham, introduces him, meet Bill Clinton, my boyfriend, he's going to be president of the United States. So once you've got a plan, whatever that plan is, share it with others. Everybody wants to help people. You and I were talking about some people who had a weight problem at the wedding tonight. If you have a plan, you want to lose 50 pounds. And you share that with your friends. You tell them you're going to do this, this, and that. And then you're at dinner and you order pie a la mode. They're going to call you out. They're going to say, Richard, what about your plan? So people want to help others, and it helps to have people hold you accountable. So write your plan, share it with others, and permissible to change, but start off with a plan and have mentors.
Would you dig down into that? Would you dig down into that a little bit and talk about the difference between a vision, goal, strategy, and tactics? Because I think people kind of can glom those all into one thing, and not see how they're distinct.
Exactly. I've worked with many people over many years, and where they did a plan, and invariably their plan was, I want to be a millionaire by age 30. That's not a plan. That's a wish. It's a dream. It's an aspiration, but it's not a plan. Maybe going to college and majoring, in business would be part of the plan. And then I want to get an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration. And I'm going to apply to this college and that college, and I'm going to fund it this way. I've got a granddaughter who's going to medical school soon, and her plan is to have us taxpayers pay for her medical school. She's going to committed to go into the military. and she'll be a doctor and then serve 4 years in the military. So she's got a plan, and that's a very specific plan. You can hold it in your hand, so to speak. Okay, and so just a list of your wishes and dreams is not a plan. So what's your vision for your life? And then the very specific goals, and strategy is what I've talked about. You want to have the military pay for your education, whatever it might be. Is a terrible example. As we began to move west in the 1850s, 1860s, there was something in a way called Indians out there, and they were unhappy. So how did the leaders of the country subdue the Indians? They did a terrible thing. They got rid of their food supply.
Yeah.
And they put General Sherman out there, and he killed 99% of the buffalo. The Indians then were forced to come into the reservations. So that's a strategy to achieve your goals. Okay, so you need a strategy, and then the tactics. All the deep, that's the weeds. Getting into the weeds, the tactics, the projects that you're going to do, and one thing or another there. But it doesn't have to be perfect. But start that practice of anytime you're doing anything that's important for your life right now. Probably most people haven't thought about, it doesn't matter how old you are. I'm at 91. I'm doing it, 2 or 3 times a week. What's my vision for this project, that project? What's my goal, strategy, tactics / projects? And
This might be switching. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, I've written a book with Kevin Gentry, a little booklet, for Viguerie's 4 Horsemen of Marketing, and it doesn't cost much money. You can go online and order it. And I talk about the 4 Horsemen, and I talk about the 4 part plan there. So if you buy the little booklet there, you'll be able to have this, and that you can refer to it. And it's probably important to read it over and over and over. The book that I gave you Saturday night at the wedding, I've read that book 8, 9, 10 times, and I just read it over and over and over. And every time I read it, I see something I didn't see before. And there's certain books out
Incredible.
there. If you want to be a well-known preacher or a priest, you don't read the Bible once. You read it over and over, and every time you read it, you see things you didn't
Exactly.
see before. You read, or you forget things. Oh, I got to remember this. I got to remember that. Type of thing. And so when there are a lot of religious books out there, but the Bible's in a class by itself. And the same in marketing. There's hundreds of good marketing books, but there's a handful. People like Seth Godin or Jack Trout, Al Reese, and just read Dick Benson. Read them over and over and over. And
You were
along the way, get
talking
more.
to me about, sorry, say that again.
I said along the
I
way,
didn't catch it.
look for mentors. You want mentors because giants came before you, and I am where I am now because I stand on the shoulders of giants. Sir Isaac Newton said that if I've seen further than others, it's because I stood on the shoulder of giants, okay, who came before him. So, the world didn't start. The conservative movement certainly did not start with Donald Trump, and I guarantee you it didn't start with Ronald Reagan. There were giants out there in the 50s and the 60s who we are deeply indebted to for doing the spade work, the early work, the Bill Buckleys and the Russell Kirks and all those out there who were there in the 50s and the 60s and 70s. And it's important to know where you came from in order to know where you want to go.
It is. It absolutely is. I'm excited to share a fantastic opportunity for State of Freedom listeners who are interested in investing in precious metals or even starting a home-based business in the precious metals industry. Metal Stacks is a precious metals collectors club where you can buy your metals at the best prices on the market, actual dealer cost. They are beating the big sites. They have no credit card fees and no minimums. If you're just interested in purchasing metals at a great price, visit metalstacks.com/dwalker. Get to shopping. That helps me out. I get the commission. You can also refer people to Metal Stacks for an additional income. If you're interested in learning about the referral business aspect of Metal Stacks, email me directly at danielle@freedomstate.us for more information. And when we were talking on Saturday, you mentioned 2 inspiring figures that you call the Macs. Would you talk about them a little bit and what they've meant to put fire in your belly?
I'm sorry, say it again. Who were they? The two one? Oh, Max, Max,
The
Max.
you
Yes,
said you
yes.
called the Macs.
So, as I said earlier, when I'm 13, 14, 15 years old, I'm consumed with saving the world, saving Western civilization, and that just drove me. I became. I was probably a nerd in those days. In high school, literally reading the congressional record, and so there were some high-profile figures, of course. General Douglas MacArthur from World War II, and then he was commander of our forces in Asia, and then in the Korean War, which started in June of 1950. For about a year and a half or 2 years, he was our commanding general there in charge of the Korean War. And then he was fired by Trump, and he came back here and began to speak out about the dangers of communism and the threat to our country that we were engaging. And he just electrified me. He was a powerful, effective speaker, General Douglas MacArthur. And then the other Mac was Senator Joe McCarthy from Wisconsin. And he became very, very popular back in the early 50s as well. And he was a very outspoken conservative, mostly dealing with communism. And as I said earlier, I'm second generation conservative. Almost 100% of first generation and second generation conservatives, before we were conservatives, we were something else. Second, conservatives came second. First, we were anti-communist. And that was the big threat to the world in those days, is anti-communism. And so, and then, many liberals became liberals because of the opposition to the Vietnam War. Hillary Clinton in 1964 is a Goldwater girl. In 1969, she's a hardcore leftist because of opposition to the Vietnam War. So I came of age during the anti-communist movement effort in the country. And we were losing a country every 3 or 4 months to the communists there. And Senator Joe McCarthy and General Douglas MacArthur were the two Macs that really inspired me and gave me the vision to become active full-time in saving Western civilization.
Well, and thank you for all the work that you have done to do that. I think a lot of people would agree that Joseph McCarthy was right, even though our textbooks to this day say that he was evil and he was a madman and all, he had an axe to grind and all those things. And I would also say that his work isn't done. I think we're still facing the threat of communism to this day in our country because of what he identified of the people that were installed at the State Department. And I pray that Doge and Trump and his team start uncovering those people and getting them out of positions of power.
I referenced Professor Harry Jaffa earlier in the podcast today, Danielle, and one of the many brilliant things that he wrote about was that when the Berlin Wall fell, when the Soviet Union dissolved and all that, we thought we had defeated communism. He says it was a very dangerous time for America because what happened is the outside, the what we could see of communism, the branches, the leaves, and all that went away, but the roots were there. Nothing touched the roots, and the roots now have spread heavily in America. College campuses are heavily influenced by Marxism and Leninism, and of course we know about China and North Korea and throughout the world the teachings of Karl Marx are alive and well, unfortunately, and so the outside of communism disappeared, but now it's coming back because the roots were not damaged; they were not touched there. So we're in a spiritual civil war, and it's important that we get everybody engaged because we can't just trust that Donald Trump will take care of it. Donald Trump needs our help. He needs us to be out there influencing our House members, our senators, the governors out there. And so he can just do so much, and his wonderful team can do so much. They need our reinforcements. They need help.
You're absolutely right. Mr. Viguerie, you have been so generous with your time, and it's such a joy to talk to you. How can people continue to glean from your wisdom? How can they get on your email list and find your blog? Where can they find you?
I do a daily website and called Conservative HQ, and we're in the process of updating it and changing it. But go to Conservative HQ or feduppac.org. That's my political action committee, and you'll see that I've got books there and articles and blogs and one thing and another. And I'm thinking seriously about starting a podcast. Danielle, as well, to be a
You
competitor
should do.
there with you. But I want to do three. I want to do a podcast about the past, the present, and the future. And I think I know I'm the world's expert on the past because in the conservative movement, I'm known as 001, which means I've been active at the national level longer than every living conservative. Jerry Falwell, Barry Goldwater, Bill Buckley, they're all unfortunately passed away. So I know the past, the history of the conservative movement, and it's important to record the history. Winston
It
Churchill was
is.
interviewed by a reporter early in the war, 1940-41, and he was at the end of the interview, the journalist asked him, Mr. Prime Minister, how will history remember you? How will they record you? What will they think about you? And Churchill said something to the effect, oh, they'll remember me as a great man that did this great thing and this great thing, etc., etc. And the journalist said, all due respect, Mr. Prime Minister, how can you be so confident history will remember you that way? Oh, very simple. I will write the history. And he did. 49 books. So it's important that conservatives record our history on video, in blogs, podcasts, etc. And so that's what I want to do, because if we don't write our history, our enemies will. And then I've just started starting it now, called Conservative 60-minute activist, so 60-second activist, where you can become an activist and forward an email, write to your congressman, call him, whatever, in just a minute or so. And then the future, I'm going to continue, but change and increase my contact with conservatives about how to be more effective in the future. I think I communicate, regularly with 20,000 conservative leaders. I'm going to add hundreds of thousands to that. So go to my website and you can sign up, and you'll learn about all these things. There's much work to be done, and I'm excited about the future. I think we've got the opportunity to save America. In this last election, that's what happened. The Lord gave us the opportunity. It's not over with. It's, as Churchill again said, this may be it's not the end. It may be the end of the beginning, but it's just the beginning at best. So we've got much work to do. Thank you, Danielle, for
We
giving
do.
me the
Well,
opportunity to speak to your audience. And I tell them Lexington and Concord I referenced earlier. That day, 3,000 patriots. Only a handful of them were under the command of a Captain John Parker. 99% had no commanding officer. They heard the sound of the guns, they grabbed a musket and ran to them. So all of your listeners right now, you know what needs to be done. Get involved and rush to the sound of the guns.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much. You have been such an inspiration, and I just am so encouraged and invigorated by this conversation. I believe the people who have heard this will feel the same, and will know that they are not being probably active enough. You have put some fire under the bum, and I think people will be less complacent and will be looking forward to seeing how they can touch the world and make a mark for the future as you continue to do. So thank you so much, Mr. Viguerie. I look forward to speaking to you again and staying in touch, and thank you for all that you're doing to save America.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you, Danielle. Godspeed.
Thank you for joining me on For the Love of Freedom today. You can stay updated on the show and upcoming guests on all of the State of Freedom platforms. And a reminder that we are live on Tuesdays at 2:30 p.m. Central Time.